Welcome, everyone. Great to have you joining us again as we journey through the course together.
Yes, welcome.
Today, we're jumping into Lesson 147. We'll explore what that means for us, practically.
And how it ties into our ongoing practice.
Plus, we've got a couple of really insightful questions from listeners later on, which connect perfectly.
Excellent. Looking forward to that.
Okay, so first, let's just absorb the lesson itself. I'll read it through. My mind holds only what I think with God. 133. I will not value what is valueless. 134. Let me perceive forgiveness as it is. Straightforward, yet so deep.
That main idea, my mind holds only what I think with God, challenges you to look at what you believe is in your mind.
All the clutter, the worries.
Exactly. And then bringing in the review lessons, 133 and 134, gives us the how. How do we get to that recognition?
It's the practical application. Now, speaking of practical, something funny happened this morning that instantly made me think of this.
Oh, yeah.
I was scrolling online, saw a friend's post, made me laugh out loud.
What was it?
It just said, due to personal reasons, I must still be fat this summer.
Okay, I can see the humor, and yeah, it's relatable for many.
Totally. But right after laughing, my mind went straight to lesson 133, I will not value what is valueless.
The connection.
It's such a perfect everyday example of putting value on something. Well, temporary, something that doesn't have lasting worth in the grand scheme of things.
It really is. All the focus, the cultural weight we put on body image, this fleeting physical state.
Right. Believing it's fundamentally important. Investing energy, attaching self-worth to something the Course would see as inherently changeable, external.
And therefore ultimately valueless in terms of bringing true, lasting peace.
Exactly. It's chasing something outside that can't deliver what we really want inside.
So how did that link up to lesson 147 for you?
Well, that's the thing. If my mind truly holds only what I think with God, would that thought, due to personal reasons, I must still be fat this summer, even be there?
No, it wouldn't compute. It wouldn't register as significant.
Would God be concerned about my beach body? I don't think so. Our actual mind, the one connected to God, is focused on eternal truth, on love.
All that other stuff, the preoccupation with appearance, the worry, that's the ego chatter.
Yeah, the ego assigning value where there isn't any to keep us distracted from what's really in our minds. So yeah, a funny post, but it kind of highlighted that gap perfectly.
That's a brilliant illustration, actually. Thanks for sharing it. It takes that abstract idea and makes it very concrete. So let's dig into that core concept more. Lesson 147 is saying our true mental content is only what we share with God's mind.
Which implies that all the other thoughts, fear, guilt, conflict, lack.
They aren't actually real content. They're illusions we've mistaken for reality.
Intruders, almost.
You could say that. And this is where lesson 133, I will not value what is valueless, becomes so vital. It's the tool for sorting through that mental clutter.
The Course points out that the world's offering status, possessions, even certain kinds of relationships based on ego needs.
They promise happiness, but can't deliver lasting peace because they're temporary. They're substitutes.
Substitutes for the real deal, the connection with God.
So lesson 133 asks us to actively choose not to invest our belief, our value in these substitutes.
And what happens when we start doing that? When we withdraw that value?
Well, let's start to clear space, don't we?
Yeah.
You can't be fully aware of the true divine content of your mind if it's crammed full of attachments to the valueless.
So lesson 133 is like clearing the weeds.
A necessary step, which then leads us naturally to lesson 134. Let me perceive forgiveness as it is. This tackles how we release those valueless thoughts we've clung to.
And the Course's take on forgiveness is different.
Very different from the usual idea. It's not about saying what you did was okay.
No, it's more about recognizing the illusion of the attack in the first place. It's an internal shift.
In seeing that the action came from a place of error, of fear, of belief in separation, not from the person's true self, which is shared with God.
So you're forgiving the mistake, the illusion, not necessarily the behavior itself.
Precisely. You're looking past the ego's interpretation to the underlying innocence. And when you do that for yourself and others,
you undo the belief in separation and guilt, the very things that block our awareness of lesson 147's truth.
Exactly. True forgiveness frees the mind from grievances, from judgments. It allows it to return to its natural state.
Which is peace, which is connection with God's thoughts.
So you see the flow. Lesson 133 helps us identify the illusions we're valuing.
Lesson 134 gives us the method, true forgiveness, to release our belief in those illusions.
And as we practice both, We clear the way to experience the reality of Lesson 147, that our mind truly holds only the loving thoughts it shares with God.
It really provides a practical path, not just an abstract idea.
Absolutely. It's about transformation through practice.
Okay, speaking of practice and real-life application, let's move to those listener questions. They touch on these exact points.
Great.
The first one is from someone dealing with loss. They write, I just lost my mother. Does I will not value what is valueless mean? It's wrong to value having her ashes in her memory.
That's a deeply felt question. Grief brings these lessons right into sharp focus.
It really does.
The key here, I think, is the course's distinction between form and content, between what's temporary and what's eternal.
Right. Lesson 133 guides us to shift our primary value away from temporary forms.
So the ashes are a physical form, a symbol, and symbols can absolutely hold deep emotional meaning for us, especially when grieving. The course isn't saying it's wrong to have that symbol or feel that connection to it.
It's not about judgment.
No. It's more a gentle guidance to recognize where the true, lasting value lies. The love you shared with your mother, her essence, her eternal reality as a child of God, that's the content. That's what's real and unending.
And that's not in the ashes.
Exactly. The ashes are a reminder, perhaps a focus point for memory and love in human terms. But the lesson encourages you to place your ultimate value on the eternal connection, the love itself, which exists beyond any physical form, beyond death as we perceive it.
So it's okay to keep the ashes, to find comfort in that symbol, but don't mistake the symbol for the eternal reality it points toward.
That's a good way to put it. Acknowledge the human grief, use symbols if they help, but keep gently reminding yourself that the true connection, the true value, is eternal and untouched.
That makes sense. It respects the human experience while still pointing towards the deeper truth.
Yes.
Okay, the second question is about Lesson 134. Let me perceive forgiveness as it is, someone asks. Does this mean that when I'm being bullied at school, I'm supposed to just let it happen?
Right. This is a crucial clarification. And the answer is unequivocally no. Absolutely not.
That's a common misinterpretation, isn't it? Thinking course forgiveness means passivity.
But course forgiveness is an internal shift. It's about how you perceive the situation and the person within your own mind. It does not mean you condone or accept harmful behavior.
So applying Lesson 134 here means trying to see that the bullying comes from the bully's own fear, their own pain, their belief in separation, their ego's illusions.
Yes. You are forgiving the illusion they are trapped in the unreality of their attack from a spiritual perspective. You're not forgiving the behavior in the sense of saying it's okay or doesn't need to be addressed.
So taking action is important.
Absolutely essential. Your safety and well-being matter. Taking practical steps, telling a teacher, getting support, setting boundaries, removing yourself from the situation is entirely consistent with course principles. The aim is peace and healing, and sometimes that requires strong external action.
So the forgiveness part is about what happens inside you.
Precisely. It's about releasing the grievance in your mind, recognizing the bully's actions, however hurtful, as ultimately a misguided call for love, stemming from their own fear. It's about refusing to let their behavior define your inner state or solidify your own belief in attack and victimhood.
Which, going back to Lesson 133, are valueless illusions anyway.
Exactly. True forgiveness in this scenario protects your peace. It stops the attack from taking root and causing ongoing suffering within you, even while you take necessary steps externally. It empowers you.
That distinction between internal perception and external action is so important.
It really is.
Okay, let's think about applying these in other everyday ways. Take Lesson 133. I will not value what is valueless. Imagine getting a big job promotion, more money, higher status.
The ego loves that stuff. Big surge of value.
Right, but applying the lesson means hitting pause on that initial ego rush.
And recognizing, okay, this role might offer experiences, maybe financial ease for a time.
But its true value isn't in the status or the money itself. Those things are temporary.
The real value might be, perhaps, the chance to practice leading with integrity, or to learn patience, or to apply course principles in dealing with colleagues.
Opportunities for spiritual growth hidden within the worldly form.
Yes. So not valuing the valueless here means not letting your inner peace become dependent on keeping that job or enjoying that status. Recognizing it's a temporary stage, not the source of lasting joy.
Good example. Now, what about Lesson 134? Let me perceive forgiveness as it is in a situation like maybe betrayal by someone you trusted.
Oof, that's a tough one. The initial reaction is often deep hurt, anger, wanting to hold on to that feeling of being wronged.
Understandably.
But applying lesson 134, even when it feels incredibly difficult, involves being willing to consider that the other person's action stemmed from their own fear, their own sense of lack, their mistaken ego beliefs.
Again, not excusing the behavior or saying it didn't hurt.
Absolutely not. But it's about being willing to look beyond the surface act, beyond the illusion of their sin and your victimhood, towards the shared underlying reality, your shared innocence as children of God.
That willingness is the key.
It is. And that willingness, that shift in perception, is what allows you to release the burden of resentment. It opens the door to healing.
Whether that healing means reconciliation or simply finding peace within yourself, regardless of what happens with the relationship.
Exactly. And notice how forgiving the perceived sin brings you right back to lesson 147. If their mind and yours truly holds only what is thought with God, then the betrayal itself, seen correctly, is part of the illusion, not the underlying truth.
It all circles back.
It really does.
So, wrapping up our deep dive for today, lesson 147 stands as this bold declaration. My mind holds only what I think with God. That's the baseline reality.
It's the truth of our being. And lessons 133 and 134 are the practical tools the Course gives us to realize that truth in our experience.
Lesson 133 gets us to question what we're valuing, to see the emptiness of the ego's promises.
And 134 provides the mechanism, true forgiveness, to let go of those valueless illusions, those grievances and judgments that obscure the truth.
And the more we consistently practice these, choosing not to value the valueless, choosing to perceive forgiveness truly, the more we peel back the layers.
Unveiling that inherent peace, that love, that connection with God that is the actual real content of our minds.
It really highlights that this is a path of practice, doesn't it? Little choices, day by day.
Every single time. Each choice strengthens that alignment with truth.
Well, that brings us to the end of our exploration today, focusing on finding those real treasures within our minds.
Keep up the wonderful work, everyone. Keep practicing, keep forgiving, keep remembering who you truly are and what your mind holds.
And if you have questions or thoughts you'd like to share for a future discussion, please email us. It's acim@theworldharmonyproject.org.
We'd also love for you to follow our journey on TikTok. You can find us at The World Harmony Project.
Okay, everyone, go out there and shine. We'll see you tomorrow.